Welcome to the Deep Dive, customized just for you. We've taken a massive stack of sources, a fantastic traveler's guide, some really detailed logistical analyses, and some seriously specific regional insights. And it's all focused on planning, well, the ultimate American adventure.
Right.
Our mission isn't just to summarize, it's really to extract the most crucial, sometimes hidden nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah, the practical stuff.
Exactly. The logistics, the cultural minefields you might encounter, and those secret preparation steps that hopefully ensure your trip is thorough, manageable, and, well, unforgettable.
And it's important because the United States isn't just a country, it's practically a continent, isn't it?
It really is.
The diversity is just staggering. You go from tropical beaches in Florida to the alpine peaks in Colorado.
Right.
Or, the deep history on the East Coast versus the geological wonders out west. So our goal today, precision. We want to cut through all that information overload and give you the essential planning metrics. And the initial takeaway, I think, is this. You really cannot grasp the size of the U.S. until you see it mapped against other continents.
That sheer scale is absolutely the first thing our sources hammered home. It's quite something. We're talking extremes. I mean, consider this.
Yeah.
Driving from Los Angeles to Miami, that's roughly 2,700 miles.
Yeah, a long haul.
It's geographically comparable to driving from Madrid, Spain, all the way to Moscow, Russia.
Wow, that puts it in perspective.
Exactly. You wouldn't try to just wing that journey across two continents, and you really can't wing it here either. The key to success, it seems, is planning, just because of those vast distances and the incredible variety.
Precisely. So let's dig into that core advice on pacing and scale first.
Okay.
If you try to cram the entire country into 1 2-week vacation, well, you're just going to spend more time looking at highways or airport carpets than actually engaging with where you are.
Right, you'll just be exhausted.
Totally. Our sources strongly advise focusing on a specific region, maybe the Northeast Corridor or the Pacific Coast or the Mountain West, and do it justice. It's really quality over quantity.
And focusing like that allows for that crucial element you mentioned, spontaneity. If your itinerary is packed down to the hour, you absolutely miss the unexpected stuff. The deep dives show that the most memorable travel stories, they usually involve stumbling across some quirky roadside diner or a local festival you didn't know about.
Exactly, because you had the breathing room, right?
Yeah.
You could actually stop and explore instead of rushing to cover another 300 miles before sunset.
Yeah, makes sense.
Now let's talk about the universal challenge, the budget.
Ah, yes, the money.
Accommodation is almost always the single biggest budget drain. And the sources provided some really valuable quantification here.
Okay.
Major cities, think New York, San Francisco, LA, often see hotel and short-term rental costs averaging 150% higher than the national average.
Wow, 150% higher.
Yeah. But then, conversely, when you travel through the Midwest or the Deep South, those costs drop, sometimes dramatically. So your budget can stretch much, much further.
That's a critical difference to know upfront. And speaking of costs, here's a crucial booking tip straight from the traveler's guide we looked at. Book well in advance.
Non-negotiable, really.
Seems like it, especially for peak season travel, right? Like Florida in winter or the mountain parks in summer.
Absolutely. You should definitely book your first few nights just to have a smooth arrival, no question. But for those high-demand locations, you might need to be thinking 6 to 12 months out.
6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into national parks later, but their accommodation booking windows are notoriously long. It's competitive.
Okay, good heads up.
And to mitigate those high costs, budget alternatives are everywhere, thankfully. Hostels are common, maybe not quite as ubiquitous as in Europe, but they're there.
Right.
And Airbnbs, other rental services, they're plentiful. They often give you these unique, locally focused stays that can be much cheaper than mid-range hotels, especially if you're traveling in a group.
Okay, but I want to circle back to that strategic location tip you mentioned earlier. Staying just outside major cities.
Ah, yes.
Like for Manhattan, the sources suggested northern New Jersey cities, Hoboken, Jersey City. You get lower accommodation costs, significantly lower sometimes. But what's the trade-off? Does that extra commute time eat into the savings, especially if it's a short trip?
That's a really great question, and you do need a critical eye there. If you're only visiting for, say, 2 or 3 nights, the savings might not outweigh the hassle of, an hour-long commute each way every day.
Right. Time is money, too.
Exactly. However, if you're staying for a week or more, the accumulated savings can easily be hundreds of dollars. And then suddenly, that commute looks a lot more worthwhile. Plus, staying somewhere like Hoboken gives you a genuine neighborhood feel. You get great local restaurants. You're not just stuck in a tourist bubble. So you're kind of trading transit convenience for authenticity and savings.
Perfect. That clarifies the strategic thinking involved there. Now, finally, for this section, we have to talk about the food factor, which impacts both budget and culture.
Oh, yeah. American portion sizes, they're legendary.
Legendary is the word. They are consistently enormous. Often way more than one person can comfortably eat in one sitting.
They can be genuinely overwhelming. But this leads directly to a crucial cultural insight and a budget solution, too.
Okay.
Because the portions are so big, 2 practices are completely normalized, totally acceptable. First, sharing meals. 2 people sharing 1 main course. Fine almost everywhere.
Good to know.
Second, the to-go box. The custom of asking for your leftovers to take home, it's ubiquitous. Expected, even.
And this isn't seen as like cheap or weird?
Not at all. It's deeply ingrained. The sources point out it's seen as practical, value-conscious. You're essentially getting 2 meals for the price of 1, right? And you avoid food waste.
That makes sense.
If you don't finish your huge plate, the server will almost always ask if you want a box. My advice, lean into it.
Okay, so with logistics covered, let's move on to how you actually physically get around this enormous landscape. Transportation strategy seems highly dependent on where you're going.
Hugely dependent. If you stick strictly to, say, the Northeast Corridor, Boston, New York, Philly, D.C., public transport is excellent. Often better than dealing with the nightmare of driving and parking in those cities.
Right, I can imagine parking in NYC is not fun.
Not fun and not cheap. So weekly or monthly passes on the subway or local transit. Highly recommended for longer stays in those areas.
However, the moment you step outside those major urban centers, especially if you want to see the natural beauty, the national parks, the deserts, the mountains,
then a car becomes pretty much mandatory. Trying to see Yellowstone or the Grand Canyon without your own wheels means you're relying on expensive, often quite restrictive, guided tours.
So the car is your key to freedom, basically.
It really is. Which, of course, brings us to driving on the right side of the road.
Ah, yes. For listeners from the UK, Australia, places like that.
Exactly. The initial adjustment requires, hypervigilance. Most drivers adjust pretty quickly, actually. But the sources really emphasize going slow at first. Be extremely cautious at intersections, and especially making left turns, which can feel very counterintuitive.
Focus, focus, focus in those first few days.
Absolutely vital.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. Before we even think about hitting the open road, we need a real deep dive into the hidden costs and complexities of renting a car. Here's where, according to our sources, it gets really interesting. Those advanced car rental tips, especially about insurance. It sounds like the insurance counter is a major point of confusion and, frankly, potential overspending.
Precisely. Rental agencies, they push hard for expensive add-ons. You really need to understand 2 key acronyms. CDW, that's Collision Damage Waiver.
Okay, CDW.
And SLI, Supplemental Liability Insurance.
SLI. Got it. What do they cover?
So the CDW, that covers damage to the car you are driving. Dents, scratches, that sort of thing. The SLI covers you if you injure someone or damage property outside of your rental car. Liability.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. So what's the essential pre-check you need to do before you even leave home?
Right, before you travel. First, check with your primary car insurance provider if you have one, especially if you live in the U.S. You might already be covered. Second, and this is key for many travelers, check your credit card benefits. Many premium travel credit cards offer primary collision coverage, the CDW.
Primary coverage. What's the difference between primary and, say, secondary?
Huge difference. Primary coverage pays out first. No questions asked, basically up to the policy limit. Secondary coverage only kicks in after your personal insurance has been fully used up.
Which could mean paying a big deductible first.
Exactly. It could cost you thousands in deductibles and potentially raise your personal insurance rates. That difference between primary and secondary. That's the nugget right there.
Okay. So if your credit card offers primary CDW,
you can confidently, politely decline that expensive rental agency CDW coverage. Save yourself some money.
good tip. But what about the liability, the SLI?
That's different. Very few credit cards offer comprehensive liability coverage, the SLI, and liability exposure in the U.S. is, frankly, extremely high. Lawsuits can be for enormous amounts.
Right.
So our sources really stress this. If you are from overseas and you don't have an equivalent U.S. liability policy, purchasing at least the supplemental liability insurance from the rental company is, well, it's pretty much a non-negotiable safety net.
Insurance against potential financial disaster, essentially.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay, powerful advice. Beyond insurance, what about protective measures right when you pick up the car?
2 immediate things before you even put the key in the ignition. Take photos of the car. Walk around it. Document every scratch, every ding, every little bit of existing damage. Use your phone. Video is even better.
Why is that so important?
It's your proof against potentially spurious damage claims when you return the car. You have dated evidence of the car's condition when you took it.
Smart. Okay, what's the second thing?
Verify the fuel level with the agent and make sure it's noted on your rental agreement. Don't just assume the tank is full.
Because if it's not, and you return it full,
you've given them free gas. Or worse, if you return it less than full, they might charge you an absolutely astronomical rate per gallon for their refueling service. It's often double or triple the local pump price.
Ouch. Okay, photos and fuel check. Got it.
And given the sheer scale we keep talking about, if you plan on exploring remote areas, think the vast deserts of Nevada or those long, long stretches between towns in West Texas. Consider joining a roadside assistance program, like AAA or something similar, or check if your rental includes it. Cell service is notoriously unreliable in many rural and wilderness areas.
Right.
And being stranded without backup, that can turn a minor problem, like a flat tire, into a major, potentially dangerous emergency.
Good point. Preparedness is key out there. Speaking of those long stretches, let's talk about the American road trip experience itself. The long distances, they're genuinely tiring, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Driver fatigue is a real issue. So our sources strongly recommend breaking up the drive. Plan interesting stops every 2 or 3 hours.
And this isn't just about bathroom breaks, right?
No, it's about discovery. Plan to see a quirky roadside attraction or pull off into a small historic town you've never heard of. It keeps the driver engaged, less likely to zone out. And it turns the transit time into part of the actual adventure, not just something to endure.
Makes the journey part of the destination.
Exactly. And essential for mental resilience on those long drives. Have your entertainment ready and downloaded. Audiobooks, podcasts, they are your best friends on hundreds of miles of straight highway.
Good call. What about safety and basic needs on the road?
Preparedness cannot be overstated, especially out west. Bring plenty of water, more than you think you'll need, and snacks.
Why so much emphasis on water?
Because in parts of the Southwest, for instance, gas stations or any kind of service can be 80, even 100 miles apart. And in the summer heat, you absolutely need to be self-sufficient if your car breaks down or you get stuck. Dehydration is a serious risk.
Okay, water and snacks are non-negotiable.
Definitely. And finally, navigation and technology. GPS is the standard now, obviously, but our sources mandate redundancy. Always have a paper map as a backup.
A paper map? Really?
Yes, really.
Huh.
Or, crucially, download offline maps onto your phone's GPS app before you leave an area with good service.
Because cell coverage disappears.
It vanishes the minute you enter many mountain ranges or deep canyons or vast stretches of desert. That offline map on your phone or the paper map in your glove box is the difference between smooth sailing and being genuinely, potentially dangerously lost.
Okay, offline maps are a must download.
Absolutely. And just a quick point on timing your driving. Try to be mindful of driving at night on unfamiliar rural roads.
Why's that?
Well, first, you miss all the beautiful scenery you came to see. But more importantly, it just introduces unnecessary risk. Winding mountain roads with no lighting or highways frequented by wildlife like deer, it's just less safe than driving during daylight hours.
Right. All that driving means you'll eventually need to stop, get gas, get food, interact with locals. Which brings us nicely to the next big hurdle, or maybe opportunity, American communication style and culture. Many visitors, our sources say, are quite surprised by how friendly and, well, outgoing Americans can seem.
Yes, that initial interaction can be different. Be prepared for strangers to engage in small talk. Someone might comment on the weather or just ask, "How are you doing today?" as you pass them in a shop.
And how should you react to that if you're maybe from a more reserved culture?
It's mostly a social ritual, really. A way to just acknowledge connection, even a fleeting one. You don't need to launch into your life story. A simple, polite, "I'm doing well, thank you," or "Yes, the weather's lovely today," is perfectly fine.
So don't overthink it.
Exactly. While it might sometimes feel, superficially cheerful to visitors, it's generally meant sincerely. It's also a good chance to just engage and practice a bit of local communication style.
Okay. And on the flip side of that friendliness, the communication style itself is generally quite direct, isn't it?
Very direct, yes. Americans tend to say what they mean pretty clearly, which can be efficient, definitely. But it might come across as slightly blunt, perhaps, or less nuanced compared to cultures that rely more heavily on implication or indirectness. Understanding this directness is helpful when you're navigating customer service or just general public interactions.
Got it. And then there's a potentially sensitive topic for visitors. National pride.
Ah, yes, patriotism.
Yeah.
It's definitely a visible element of the culture, especially around national holidays like the 4th of July or at historical sites.
So what's the advice there?
Just maintain a respectful curiosity, really. As a general rule for travel anywhere, it's usually best to avoid getting into heated political debates with strangers you've just met.
Good life advice generally, probably.
You're there to observe and learn, right? Not necessarily to change hearts and minds on deeply held beliefs.
Fair enough. Okay, now, what's fascinating here, and often utterly baffling to visitors, is the tipping system.
Ah, the tipping minefield, yes.
Yeah. For many international visitors, this isn't just an extra expense. It feels like a compulsory, almost bewildering social obligation. Why is tipping so ingrained and, mandatory here?
It really boils down to the wage structure. It's fundamentally different from many other countries.
How so?
Unlike places where service staff are paid a full minimum wage or higher, in the U.S., many workers in service industries, wait staff, bartenders, hotel staff, hairdressers, taxi drivers, are often legally paid a sub-minimum wage.
Sub-minimum?
Yes.
Yeah.
Federally, the tipped minimum wage is sometimes as low as $2.13 per hour. The expectation, legally and culturally, is that tips will supplement this low base wage to bring them up to at least the standard minimum wage and hopefully a living wage.
Wow, okay, so tipping isn't just an optional thank you for great service.
Not really, no. It's fundamentally a compulsory contribution to the worker's expected income. It's part of how they budget and live.
That completely reframes the practice. So what is the standard rate that visitors absolutely need to know and, frankly, adhere to?
Okay, the baseline standard expected rate for good service at a sit-down restaurant is 15% to 20% of the pre-tax bill.
15 to 20%. Okay.
If the service was genuinely exceptional, they went above and beyond, 25% is generous, but certainly appreciated.
What if the service was not great, maybe even bad?
This is where it gets tricky culturally. Even if you felt the service was poor, leaving something, maybe a token tip, say 10%, is still generally expected.
Why is that?
Partly because the server might not be directly responsible for the issue. Maybe the kitchen was slow, for example. And partly because, again, their livelihood really depends on those tips. Failing to tip anything at all can be seen as a very strong, almost personal insult or statement.
Okay, so error on the side of leaving something.
Generally, yes.
Okay.
And always check the bill carefully, especially if you're dining with a larger group, maybe 6 or more people.
Why is that?
Many restaurants automatically add a gratuity or service charge for large parties. It's often 18% or sometimes 20%. If that's already included on your bill, you don't need to tip extra on top of that unless you felt the service was truly extraordinary and wanted to add more.
Right, don't double tip accidentally.
Exactly. So the rule of thumb is really, if you're unsure, it's usually better to err on the side of tipping or being slightly more generous.
Okay, that's clear, if complex. Beyond the financial etiquette, the U.S. is also a true linguistic melting pot, isn't it? Accents, slang.
Oh, absolutely. You will encounter a huge variety of regional accents and slang. You can drive just a few hundred miles and hear a completely different twang or cadence.
Like what kind of differences?
Well, think about the distinct sort of compressed vowel sounds of a classic Boston accent compared to the slow, elongated phrasing you might hear in a deep Texas drawl. They sound completely different.
Right. And the vocabulary changes too.
Dramatically. The classic example is ordering a carbonated soft drink. You might ask for soda on the East Coast, especially around New York. Head to the Midwest, and it's almost always pop. Go down south, and often people just say Coke, even if they mean Sprite or Dr. Pepper.
Huh. So what's the advice if you just can't understand someone?
Don't be embarrassed. Just politely ask them to repeat themselves. Say something like, Sorry, I didn't quite catch that, or could you say that again? It's much better to clarify than to just nod along and misunderstand something important like directions or an instruction.
Okay, moving from potentially confusing language to definitely delicious food. The U.S., as we've said, is huge and diverse, and that absolutely applies to its regional cuisines. It's a culinary powerhouse.
It really is. And we almost have to start in the South, wouldn't you say? The home of comfort food, and specifically barbecue.
Oh, barbecue. But, as our sources made clear, barbecue is not just one thing, is it? It's practically a religion with different denominations.
Exactly. It's a whole field of study. If you find yourself in the Carolinas, for example, you're primarily looking at pork barbecue. And even there, it differs. Eastern Carolina often uses a thin, tangy, vinegar-based sauce. Western Carolina tends towards a thicker tomato or sometimes mustard-based sauce.
Right, regional specifics are key.
Then you travel to Texas, and the focus shifts almost entirely to beef, particularly slow-smoked brisket. Often it's about the quality of the meat and the bark from a dry rub, rather than being drowned in heavy sauce during the cooking process.
Understanding those regional differences is crucial for getting the authentic experience.
Totally. And then if we zoom in on the culinary capital of the Deep South, New Orleans, wow, you have that incredible blend of Cajun and Creole traditions.
What are the absolute must-tries there?
Oh, you have to try gumbo, definitely, jambalaya. And for something sweet, the powdered sugar-dusted beignets, especially with coffee.
Maize.
And for the more adventurous palate, the sources highlighted alligator sausage.
Alligator sausage.
Right.
What's that like?
It's often surprisingly mild, actually, quite lean. It tends to take on the flavor of the spices it's cooked with. Definitely worth trying if you see it. And also, don't miss shrimp and grits, a classic combination of fresh Gulf shrimp and creamy southern cornmeal porridge. Simple, but perfect.
Okay, my mouth is watering already. Let's shift coasts. New England.
New England screams lobster roll. It's a masterclass in simplicity, really.
Describe the perfect lobster roll.
Fresh, locally sourced lobster meat, usually just lightly tossed with a bit of mayonnaise or sometimes warm with melted butter. Served in a specific type of bun, a split-top hot dog bun, toasted and buttered on the sides. That's it. Simple, but it showcases the sweet lobster perfectly. Pure coastal deliciousness.
Sounds amazing. And across the country, Pacific Northwest.
Pacific Northwest is all about fresh seafood too, but different kinds. World-class salmon, definitely. Oysters, they have fantastic oyster bars. And Dungeness crab when it's in season. All sourced directly from those cold, clean Pacific waters.
Okay, and if we head inland a bit, Southwest.
Southwest changes the culinary landscape again. You have to look for green chili cheeseburgers. It's a New Mexico specialty.
Green chili cheeseburgers.
Yeah, they take roasted green hatch chilies, which have this wonderful, earthy, smoky flavor and can range from mild to quite spicy, and layer them onto a cheeseburger. And it adds this incredible depth and kick. Seriously good.
I need to try that. Okay, and then there's Chicago and the thing they call pizza.
The deep dish pizza debate, it never ends.
Our sources described it as less like a traditional pizza and more like a savory pie.
That's a pretty good description. The construction is key. It starts with a tall, thick, often buttery crust that lines a deep pan. Then comes a really heavy layer of mozzarella cheese. Then your toppings go on the cheese. And finally, the tomato sauce is ladled over the top.
Sauce on top. Why?
It protects the cheese and toppings from scorching during the long baking time needed for that thick crust. It is absolutely an experience, and it's definitely a fork and knife situation usually. It's a meal in itself.
Okay, noted. An experience.
Finally, we have to embrace the truly weird and wonderful side of American food culture, which often comes out at state fairs.
The land of deep-fried everything.
Pretty much. These regional fairs are where culinary creativity meets, well, deep-frying absurdity. Deep-fried Oreos are almost standard now, but the sources also mention things like deep-fried sticks of butter.
Deep-fried butter, seriously.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And even deep-fried Kool-Aid balls. The ingenuity, or perhaps madness, of the deep fryer knows no bounds at a state fair.
Wow. Okay, maybe try one absurd thing for the story.
Exactly. It's part of the Americana experience. Be open to trying at least one crazy treat. But if you're looking for genuine quality food day to day, the advice is pretty universal. Try to avoid the obvious tourist traps, especially around major attractions.
How do you spot them?
Look for locally owned places. Check online reviews, sure, but also look where the locals are eating. Is there a line of people who clearly aren't tourists? That's usually a good sign. And if you're ordering seafood, especially if you're not right on the coast, maybe just discreetly try to check for freshness if you can.
Okay, let's pivot now to what are arguably the crown jewels of the U.S. for many visitors.
Yeah.
The national parks.
Absolutely. They're just geographical masterpieces. Thinking about the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
the scale is just immense. It genuinely makes you feel infinitesimally small looking out over it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Or Yosemite in California with those unbelievable giant sequoia trees and the towering granite cliffs like El Capitan and Half Dome.
Incredible.
Or Zion National Park in Utah, where the iconic hike, the Narrows, literally involves wading, sometimes swimming, through the Virgin River as it cuts through the canyon. Just spectacular places.
The scale is breathtaking, absolutely. But the logistics, according to our sources, sound equally intense.
They can be. And here is probably the single most crucial piece of logistical advice from the deep dive for these parks: advanced booking.
For what specifically?
For any kind of accommodation inside the parks,
Yeah.
the historic lodges, the cabins, even the campsites. It's not just recommended, it is essentially mandatory if you want to stay within the park boundaries.
How far in advance are we talking?
We mentioned it earlier, you're often looking at booking windows opening 6 months, sometimes even a full year in advance. The demand is incredibly high.
A year. Wow. So if you don't book that early.
Your only option is likely staying in gateway towns outside the park entrances, which is fine, but it can easily add an hour or more of driving each way every day just to get into and out of the park, battling traffic at the gates.
Okay, so planning way ahead is critical for park lodging.
Absolutely critical. But here's a fantastic cost-saving strategy if you plan on visiting multiple national parks or even other federal lands like national forests or monuments.
Yeah.
Get the America the Beautiful Pass. It costs about $80 currently.
Okay. What does it get you?
It provides 1 year of access for a carload of people to over 2,000 federal recreation sites across the country. That includes all the national parks.
All of them.
All of them. Considering that entrance fees for popular parks like the Grand Canyon or Yellowstone can be $35 or more per vehicle per park, this pass pays for itself if you visit just 3 parks within a year. Huge potential savings.
That sounds like a no-brainer if you're doing a part-heavy trip.
Definitely worth looking into. And once you're in the parks, the activities are incredibly diverse. It's not just about hardcore hiking. There are usually trails for all skill levels, from easy paved paths to strenuous mountain climbs. Always check the difficulty rating, the distance, and crucially, the weather forecast before you set out.
Good advice. What else?
Take advantage of the ranger-led programs. They offer guided walks, talks, campfire programs. They often reveal incredible historical context or ecological insights about the park that you just miss on your own. Highly recommended.
Cool.
And some parks have totally unique features you can't see anywhere else, like Yellowstone's geysers, Old Faithful, Grand Prismatic Spring, or the volcanic landscapes.
Amazing. What about the best time to visit these parks?
Timing is also critical, yeah.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, spring and fall are often the ideal times. You get milder temperatures and usually smaller crowds compared to the peak summer months.
Especially for certain parks.
Definitely, particularly for the canyon and desert parks in places like Utah and Arizona, Zion, Bryce Canyon, Arches, Grand Canyon. Visiting them in the middle of summer means braving intense, potentially dangerous heat. Spring and fall are much more pleasant.
Okay, good tip. Let's shift gears now. Head to the East Coast. History Central, right?
Absolutely. You step right into the story of the nation's founding. Cities like Boston, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. form the spine of American history.
And Washington, D.C. has a pretty amazing resource for visitors, doesn't it?
It really does. The Smithsonian Institution museums, there are nearly 20 of them in D.C., are almost all completely free to enter.
All of them. Free.
Yep. Including world-famous ones like the National Museum of Natural History, the National Museum of American History, and the incredibly popular National Air and Space Museum. You could easily spend a week just exploring the Smithsonian complex and not see everything. A huge value.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Oh.
Any other historical highlights?
Well, slightly outside the major cities, places like Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the site of the pivotal bloody Civil War battle, are incredibly moving. They offer a profound, if quite somber, experience and lesson in American history.
Okay. And for these East Coast city breaks, especially high-cost ones like New York City, the budgeting strategy still holds.
Absolutely. You need to be smart. Utilize those free museum days or evenings that many museums offer. Explore the incredible diversity of affordable ethnic restaurants and neighborhoods outside the main tourist hubs like Midtown Manhattan, think Queens or Brooklyn. And honestly, walk everywhere. It's the best way to see the city, and it saves a ton on expensive taxis or even subway fares if you do it strategically.
Good plan. Okay, let's move on to some unique regional experiences. Few places seem as distinctive as New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans is definitely one of a kind. The vibe is just unlike any other U.S. city. It's this amazing blend of French, Spanish, Caribbean, and African influences that you see everywhere.
In the architecture too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the stunning architecture. The historic Creole cottages in the French Quarter, the famous intricate wrought iron balconies everywhere, the long, narrow shotgun houses in neighborhoods like the Marigny. It's visually unique.
And the music.
Oh, the music. Live jazz is the city's heartbeat, truly. While Bourbon Street is the famous, often rowdy party destination.
Yeah, I've heard about Bourbon Street.
The sources, and I'd agree, strongly advise heading over to Frenchmen Street, especially in the evenings.
Why Frenchman Street?
It's generally a more authentic, local experience. You'll find numerous small clubs packed tightly together, featuring absolutely phenomenal local jazz musicians playing incredible music in really intimate settings. It's fantastic.
Sounds great. But there's a catch with New Orleans.
The climate. Be prepared for heat and especially intense humidity, particularly from late spring through early fall. It can be quite draining, so plan accordingly, stay hydrated, and maybe schedule indoor activities during the hottest part of the day.
Good practical tip. Okay, let's fly across the country again. Pacific Northwest, Seattle specifically.
Seattle, known globally for its coffee culture, right? Birthplace of Starbucks, but also tons of amazing independent cafes.
Right, and food.
Often tied into that is a fantastic local food scene, again, focusing on that amazing fresh seafood we talked about, salmon, oysters, crab.
And it's good base for exploring nature, too.
Definitely. Seattle is beautifully situated between Puget Sound and mountains, and it's very easy to combine a trip there with visiting the nearby Olympic National Park.
What's special about Olympic?
It's incredibly diverse. Within one park, you have rugged Pacific coastline, stunning temperate rainforests dripping with moss, like the Hoh Rainforest and glacier-capped mountains. It's like 3 parks in one. Really spectacular.
Wow. Okay, we mentioned coastal drives. The Pacific Coast Highway, PCH, especially through Big Sur in California.
Essential California viewing. It's an absolutely epic drive, winding along cliffs high above the Pacific. Stunning vistas.
There was a warning, wasn't there? Especially for Southern California.
Yes, a crucial traveler warning. If you plan your PCH trip or visit coastal Southern California in May or June, be aware of a phenomenon called June gloom.
June gloom. What is that?
It's caused by a persistent coastal marine layer, basically thick fog and low clouds that roll in off the ocean overnight and often linger well into the morning, sometimes even all day, right on the coast.
So no sunshine.
It can completely obscure those beautiful coastal views until it burns off, usually around midday, but sometimes it sticks around. So don't necessarily expect endless sunshine if you visit the SoCal coast in late spring, early summer. And coastal weather anywhere can be unpredictable. You might need a sweater even in Maine in July.
Good heads up. Okay, now for the real deep dive into the unexpected. Hidden gems off the beaten path places.
Yeah, the U.S. has so many fascinating smaller cities and regions. Consider St. Augustine, Florida.
St. Augustine, right there.
It holds the title of the oldest continuously inhabited European settlement in the continental U.S., founded by the Spanish way back in 1565. So it offers this fantastic, historic Spanish colonial vibe. Narrow streets, old forts, beautiful architecture that's very different from the rest of Florida, and often missed by tourists focused only on the theme parks or Miami.
Interesting. Where else?
Or head way out west to Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a city almost entirely focused on art, Native American crafts, and that stunning southwestern adobe architecture.
What's the vibe like?
The light there is incredible, the high desert landscape.
Yeah.
It's attracted artists for generations. Think Georgia O'Keeffe, there's a museum dedicated to her there. It's very unique culturally and aesthetically.
Sounds beautiful.
And finally, when you're doing those long road trip miles between the big sites, don't forget to embrace the absurdity of the quirky roadside attractions.
Oh, the way.
Our sources loved the dedicated apps like Roadside America or Road Trippers that help you find these things. We're talking about the world's largest ball of twine in Kansas, or the Cadillac Ranch in Texas, or the dozens of giant statues of Paul Bunyan scattered across the Midwest.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. These stops are often hilarious, break the monotony of the drive, and offer this genuinely unique, slightly weird slice of Americana that's actually really fun.
Okay, we've covered the fun stuff, the parks, the food, the weird attractions. Now let's nail down the critical final checks. Safety and awareness.
Right. General caution is universal for travel, obviously, but there are some U.S.-specific contexts to be aware of. In many large U.S. cities, particularly in the main business or downtown districts that aren't primarily residential, the street can become surprisingly quiet, almost deserted after standard business hours, say after 7 p.m.
Quieter than European capitals, maybe.
Potentially, yes. Unlike cities where people live right downtown, many U.S. downtowns empty out. So finding a bus stop or walking back to your hotel in an unpopulated downtown area late at night can feel quite exposed. Just be vigilant, know your route beforehand, and maybe opt for a taxi or rideshare if you're unsure or alone late at night.
Good advice.
Yeah.
And basic precautions.
Keep valuables out of sight. Don't flash expensive jewelry or the latest electronics, especially in crowded tourist areas or on public transport. A simple crossbody bag worn across your chest rather than just on your shoulder is highly recommended. It makes it much harder for pickpockets.
Okay. And this raises the question of scams and pitfalls. What should people watch out for?
The most common one mentioned is probably ticket scams, especially around major attractions or events. Always buy your tickets directly from the official venue box office or their verified website. Avoid people selling tickets on the street. They could be fake or hugely inflated.
Any other common scams?
Be wary of unsolicited help from strangers, particularly in busy areas. Sometimes it's genuine, but sometimes it can be a distraction technique used by pickpockets. Someone accidentally bumps into you or drops something or asks for complicated directions, while an accomplice lifts your wallet.
So trust your instincts.
Absolutely. If an interaction feels off, too rushed, overly helpful in a strange way, or just suspicious, trust that feeling. Disengage politely but firmly and move away.
Okay. Let's talk tech, connectivity. How important is having reliable data?
Hugely important, especially for navigation, booking things on the fly, checking opening hours, etc. The strong recommendation from our sources. Purchase a prepaid local SIM card upon arrival.
Where do you get those?
You can often find them right at the airport or at major convenience stores like 7-Eleven or electronic stores like Best Buy or even supermarkets sometimes.
Why not just use roaming from your home carrier?
Roaming charges from overseas carriers in the U.S. can be absolutely exorbitant. A local prepaid SIM, which might cost you $30, $50 for a month of decent data, will almost certainly be vastly cheaper and give you reliable service.
But there's a catch, right? Your phone needs to be
unlocked, yes. You need to ensure your phone is unlocked by your home carrier before you leave home, meaning it can accept a SIM card from another network. Check with your provider about how to do that.
Crucial step. And repeat, because it's that vital.
Download offline maps, Google Maps, Maps.me, whatever app you use. Download the maps for the entire regions you'll be visiting while you have Wi-Fi. They are an absolute lifesaver when you inevitably lose cell service in remote areas.
Got it. Okay, final push on saving money on the road.
Yes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture. City passes.
Yes, city passes or similar bundled attraction tickets. Definitely look into these if you plan on hitting multiple major paid attractions in high-cost cities like New York, Chicago, San Francisco.
How much can you save?
It varies, but they can often provide savings of 20% to 40% or even more compared to buying individual tickets at the gate. Just make sure the attractions included are ones you actually want to visit and check the validity period.
Good tip. What else?
For road trips, use a gas price app like Gas Buddy. Gas prices can vary quite dramatically, even between exits on the same highway or just across a state line. The app helps you find the cheapest options along your route. Pennies per gallon add up over thousands of miles.
Smart. And cooking.
And remember the advice about cooking some of your own meals. Even if you only manage to make breakfast in your hotel room or pack sandwiches for lunch some days, those savings on restaurant meals really accumulate over a 2 or 3 week trip.
Okay. And one last crucial financial nuance. Sales tax.
Ah, yes. This catches so many international visitors completely unaware. In the U.S., the sticker price you see on items in stores, clothes, souvenirs, groceries, almost everything except some basic foods does not include sales tax.
So the price on the tag isn't the final price?
Nope. Sales tax is added at the register when you pay. And the rate varies wildly by state and sometimes even by city or county. There's no single national rate, so just be prepared for the final amount you pay to be somewhat higher, maybe 5% to 10% higher typically, than the price marked on the shelf.
Good to know to avoid sticker shock at the till.
Exactly. Hashtag tag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, I feel like we've really unpacked a huge amount here. Everything from the critical nuances of car rental insurance, that primary versus secondary coverage thing is key, to needing to plan accommodation literally 6 to 12 months ahead. for those incredible national parks. We dove into the complexities of compulsory tipping culture, the sheer absurdity of deep-fried butter,
Yes.
and the absolute necessity of offline maps for navigating those vast, potentially service-free stretches of American highway.
It's a lot to cover because, well, the U.S. is a lot of country. But the key takeaways for you, the listener, are hopefully clear now.
What would you say they are?
Plan your itinerary regionally. Don't try to see everything. Quality over quantity. Understand that tipping isn't optional. It's part of the service economy here. And book early, especially for flights, rental cars, and accommodation in popular natural destinations or during peak season. Oh, and check that insurance.
Excellent summary. And as we wrap up, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over as you, perhaps, start dreaming or planning your own American adventure.
Okay.
Considering the incredible historical depth and the sheer regional diversity we've touched on today, from Civil War battlefields and Revolutionary War sites on the East Coast to the ancient Spanish colonial architecture down in St. Augustine, or the sites detailing millennia of Native American history out west.
Right. So much history layered everywhere.
Exactly. Maybe the most valuable part of a U.S. trip isn't just the spectacular scenery or the amazing regional food. Maybe it's the chance to engage directly with and try to understand the complexities of its many varied pasts.
That's a great point.
So the question for you to think about is, if you could choose just one specific historical era or one regional story to really immerse yourself in during your trip, which deep layer of American history would you choose to explore first?